130 nations who've signed the Save the Fraser Declaration. And most notably, most recently, the Squamish Nation and the Tsleil-Waututh Nation, right here on Burrard Inlet, which is remarkable. I mean, this is two nations who have overlapping land claims, who have not always been on the same page about every issue. But they've come together in a really unprecedented way to say no to this project, and they're working closely together. They put out t-shirts at the canoe journey a couple of weekends ago. We had this beautiful gathering of traditional canoes out in front of the Kinder Morgan terminal to basically put them on notice that these First Nations were saying no to this project. And they had a t-shirt with both of their logos on it, side to side, which I was told by one of the locals hadn't happened in decades. So actually, in some ways, I think this process is bringing people together in unprecedented ways. It's helping people in the Fraser Valley find common cause with people in Kitsilano and elsewhere. Helping these First Nations, have a reason to come to a table and talk to each other. And I actually think that this can be a really good turning point moment for all of us. And there's a lot of leadership to be taken from the First Nations who are really standing up and showing the way. And I mean, these are some of the most impoverished people in our province. And many of them are being offered their nations millions of dollars, behind closed doors, and they're saying no to it on principle. And I think it's really up to us to show them our support of this environment. So maybe I'll just wrap it up, and I don't know if we got any time for questions, but I'll tell you a couple more ways you can get involved. First one is, if you're interested in hosting a town hall meeting, let me know. There's no time better than right now. You could tell me after I get off the stage. You could throw something at me from the audience if you want. I probably won't come to a town hall if you do that, but nobody laughed at that one, jeez. So if you do want to do a town hall meeting, we're totally happy to help you pull something together, whether it's around a kitchen table or something bigger in a church or a school or whatever it is that you want to do. We can try to help make sure that you've got the information you need and the resources you need to do that. We also have some activist kits with stuff to help you get out there and talk to your neighbors if you want. We've already gone through 50,000 of those newspapers that I showed you and just did another print run of about 30,000 of them because people are handing them out all over the place. So if you want some of them, we can provide them. Also, who here has heard of the Defend Our Coast action at the legislature? All right, I got actually something new to tell you. That's great. So there's an action based on what happened at the Keystone XL action at the White House that is going to happen at the legislature on the week of October 21st to the 24th. It's being organized by Greenpeace and a bunch of other groups. And basically it's an opportunity to be part of what Greenpeace is saying will be the largest act of civil disobedience for an environmental issue in the history of Canada. It's an opportunity to come and show that you're opposed to both of these projects, that no amount of money or compensation would be enough to sell our coast for, and that we want a premier who will actually stand up for the coast. Of course, you've probably heard that the legislature has been cancelled for this upcoming sitting, which is really shameful, and I think speaks quite highly to this idea that there really is nobody standing up for the coast and standing up to our Prime Minister right now. So the group Tanker Free BC is actually putting together an online sign-up form on their website where you'll be able to sign up to either carpool or get on a bus or take transit with a group of people, so that you're not going there alone if you do want to go to this action. I should also say, if you don't want to get arrested or you can't get arrested, or but you're still interested in participating, there is ways to be involved and to show support. Everything from helping to sort of facilitate for people there at the legislature. There'll also be a large rally on the 21st, which we're getting busloads of people together for. So if you're interested in being part of that action, but you're not so sure about actually sitting down on the steps of the legislature and getting arrested, there's ways that you can participate. So I guess on that note, do I have time for questions, or
yes,
maybe one or two? All right. So thank you all so much for having me here. Looks like Alan's got a question, yeah?
well, I think we should have a full contingent going to Victoria. How many people want to do it? Also, the other thing, Friday night at the Friendship Center, First Nations women have organized a Women Against Climate Change event at starting at 5:30, so that's another good way to get
Sure. We could do a mic check. No, I'm just kidding.
Thanks. Friday night, 5:30, Friendship Center.
It's a gathering Indigenous women. It's called She Speak. It's Indigenous women talking about the tar sands, and there'll be actually Ruben's mom, his sister, and his niece will all be there doing the greeting. And then there's Melina Lubicon Massimo from Greenpeace and a number of other fantastic women who will be there speaking about the impact of the tar sands on people at the other end of this pipeline. And it's a good reminder, you know, we don't talk about the tar sands enough in the context of these pipelines. And as a friend of mine from Fort Chipewyan said, there's an oil spill happening every day there. That's just called how they do business. It's, you know, I mean, those tailing ponds or tailing lakes is probably the better way to describe them, are a total blight on humanity and have huge impacts, much higher levels of cancer for all the people living in and around that area. So it's very important that we don't forget that even without a spill here, the impact of expanding these pipelines, either one would increase the size of the tar sands by about 30%. Yeah, question back there.
HOPE is a municipal organization, and these pipelines are going to be going through cities.
Mm-hmm.
Do the governments of the cities in the region, Metro Vancouver, Alberta, you know, do they have any power whatsoever in whether these pipelines will be developed?
You know, it's a tough question. I mean, the easy answer is yes. The more complicated question is exactly what. I mean, any government entity has the ability to take these companies to court, has the ability to fight over, you know, zoning issues as they relate to the actual pipeline, some of the property issues. There's also this whole question of insurance and indemnity and all that, which I think is a reasonable conversation to be having anyway, just to highlight the level of risk and the cost associated with what could actually happen. It does also sort of open the door to saying, well, some amount of money would make it okay, which I don't think anybody here is saying. You know, so I do think there's a certain amount of technical power that governments have, but then there's also this larger question of sort of normalizing dissent. You know, and this is, I think, where actually, you know, elected people or just sort of community leaders or just, you know, normal everyday folk really do need to stand up and say no to this project. And when people say that municipal governments have no power to stop this project, it really pisses me off. Because, I mean, if they don't have any power, how much power do we have? You know, and the truth of the matter is that we all have the power to stop this project. Some of us have bigger or smaller microphones. I actually think that's a pretty decent idea. The reason why it's not the front and center thing that I say is I worry that once you start talking about, well, maybe we should be refining it in Alberta, it can open the door to, they build a new refinery and build a new pipeline, and then we get both and they say we compromise, which is often what happens when you sort of put the solution out in front of the problem, is you end up getting these compromises that don't actually solve the problem. So what I think is important is that first things first, we say no to tar sands exports. That we say that this isn't going to be a tar sands export, you know, coast. That this coast is going to be free of the export of this oil. And then there's this other question of what do we do for our own local consumption. And I think really we need an overarching plan. I mean, I for one wouldn't be satisfied if we were just consuming more and more oil, but refining it locally. Because refineries are toxic. People who live around them get cancer. I mean, they're horrible facilities for people who live in the general vicinity of them. You know, and for that reason, I think, you know, yes, we should be refining our own oil. You know, if we're consuming it, we should be the ones dealing with the pollution. We shouldn't be exporting our pollution somewhere else. But it's almost kind of a secondary conversation to what we need to do to, you know, after we've done everything that we can to reduce our oil consumption. And we're not doing nearly enough in that regard. In fact, we're moving aggressively in the wrong direction when it comes to building highways, not investing in public transit, sprawling all over farmland. Like, I think those are actually the top of mind things that we need to hit over and over and over again. Like, those are the positive solutions that actually create way more jobs and improve quality of life, and they don't expose people to increasing levels of toxins. So, I mean, I think we have to do everything we can to reduce our exposure to those toxins and our dependence on fossil fuels. I think I'm done. Okay. Oh, sorry, Fred. I think we have to talk to the side. I'm getting like a cane pointing.
I wanted to make a point, 2 points. Okay, Robin Allen, who is the president and CEO of ICBC, has written about the economics of both of these pipelines. And the economics is this: there is no economic benefit. As you mentioned, there'd be cost. Secondly, there's an announcement. I was arrested for the first time in my life on May 5th for blocking a coal train. And those of us who did that in White Rock are going to have a presentation later on Friday night at 7:30 at the Vancouver Public Library on civil disobedience. You know, if we don't start doing heavy-duty civil disobedience, our grandkids are going to suffer even more than they are now.